Yo, what's up, guys? So, today I want to make a video that's going to be part one of probably a three-part little mini-series on this topic of improving your rhythm and time feel as a jazz musician. This is an idea that I've wanted to do for a while now. Personally, especially if you like my videos, I think that this is going to be some of the best information that I've put out because I think it's going to consolidate this topic for you guys really well, and over the next three videos give you some really good practical advice on how to actually get better at this stuff, because I think, and I think Hal Galper said a similar thing too, that this topic of rhythm in jazz education is extremely lacking. The information is out there, it absolutely is. Even a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be teaching you over the next three lessons I've gotten from other people, but it's not consolidated in a nice way, and it's harder to find, and it's just that harmony is stressed so much, and harmony is important, but it really is not the primary sort of innovation of this jazz music, like Hal Galper says, and we tend to get caught up in the harmony. But if you don't have a strong conception of rhythm when it comes to playing this music, and if you don't know what you have to do to improve in this, you're gonna be left in the dust. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is today's is probably gonna be the most rambly, but stick around because I promise you I will play this thing a little bit today, and I will give you an extremely useful and beneficial exercise by the end of this video today. And ironically, it actually has to do more with improving their ability to play changes, but you'll see, we're still going to talk about it within the context of rhythm. But today's going to be more of an intro video, but I'm going to get to some topics today. But I'm going to break this up mainly into three main categories. Today's going to be more about, like, basically taking care of the changes, if we're still playing something that has a lot of changes, but within the context of a rhythmic mindset. Tomorrow's will probably be mainly focusing on, the rhythmic component of phrasing and how to phrase your notes, but there's a lot of information in that. And then the third one will probably be on, like, time feel and stuff like that, but again, we'll be talking about comping in that video. I might talk about drumming a little bit and the importance of that, so stick around because there will be a lot of good information that you're going to want to get in these videos. Okay? So, and basically, I want to break this up into topics, but I'm going to also try to stick to a chronological order here, because what I would say is within the last year, I've basically gathered a lot of useful information to help me improve. Because where I'm coming from with this is, the importance of rhythm in my own playing and the way I preach it to my students. This is nothing new to me, even before this past year. I'd say I have had a strong appreciation for having good rhythm and time probably for at least 10 years. But the thing is this, it's kind of an ironic thing for me, because if I talk about my own experience, as much as I stress the importance of rhythm and time, personally, I think that it's a weakness of mine, and I think it's something that I have to continuously work on so that I can get it to a level that is satisfying to me. But I think that's why I preach it so much, is because it's something that I struggle with. So for me, it's kind of like, well, this is sort of the missing link, or one of the main missing links in terms of being the player that I want to be. Um, you know, but I think that the reason why all this information has been helpful to me is this. You'd think if I understood this stuff 10 years ago, I'd be at a satisfying level at this point, but to me, it's a problem of inconsistency, because it's not like my rhythm and time is always crap. I have my good days and my bad days, just like anyone else, but the thing is, I've noticed that when my timing is good, everything else tends to fall into place, and my playing overall tends to be good. But it's just that I would describe the experience almost as if I was trying to throw a dart at a dartboard and hit it. And it's just basically like, well, I hope my timing is good today, and why am I in this mindset, the right mindset on some days, and I understand the approach and everything, but then there's other days where it's just not happening, and my timing isn't good. So all these things that I basically acquired over the last year are things that has helped me to improve in consistency, so that I know how to tap into the right sort of mindset in terms of how to be a rhythmic player more consistently. So if this sort of sounds like your own experience, then obviously keep watching, because I'm going to tell you, some valuable things. Okay? So, today where I think that I want to start is this little story or this experience that I had pretty much about a year ago. And what had happened was I met this bass player at a jam session who's a great young bass player, definitely better than me as a jazz musician. And I wanted to basically shed some tunes with him one time and, hopefully try and take something out of the experience. So we met up one morning and we just shed some tunes for about an hour. And to be perfectly honest, I really didn't think I played well at all, which could be a good thing, honestly, if you're actually trying to learn things from people, because then maybe your weaknesses will really be shining, so then people can kind of, give you some critical advice if you're open to it. So, we played, and at the end of the experience, basically I asked him, I'm like, do you have any advice for improving your ability to play over chord changes? Because that's where my focus was at least at that day. Um, and his answer, it was ironic to me, but it actually opened up a very important point in my head. Basically, what he said was, honestly, man, I think that you play changes great. Um, I would just try to make it swing more, which is really just, make sure the timing is good, work on your timing. And you'll see, even within these next coming videos, he's not the only person to literally tell me things of pretty much the same nature. So the fact that people are always pointing this out to me, and I've known all along that timing is a weakness of mine, but it's nice when people point it out to you, because it basically confirms what you believed in the first place. So the reason why this response is very ironic to me is because, and he could tell, he's like, I could tell that you've taken the time to study jazz vocabulary, you understand the way lines are and all that, but basically my approach, like what I thought my approach was in terms of how to remedy getting better at playing changes, was to focus on the changes even more. But what he helped me realize is that basically what that's doing is it's causing a positive feedback mechanism in your brain that is yielding a negative result. Ironically, just because it's a positive feedback mechanism doesn't mean it's a good thing. Because in my head, I thought I wasn't playing the changes well enough. So what was my natural response? To focus on the changes even more. But what that's doing, honestly, is you're digging an even deeper hole than where you're at to begin with. Okay? Because this is what I'm realizing here, and this is the main point of this part of this series here today, is that when you're approaching playing jazz, no matter what you're doing, whether you're playing leads or melodies or comping, but I think that for most of you guys this would probably apply more to playing leads, because when you're soloing, you're trying to make the changes. But you need to know your changes, which is something I'm going to get to here in a minute. But if you're not, you have to be focusing on rhythm first, okay? Because that is how you develop the proper feel and phrasing to play this music. And again, this is not something that was new to me, but it was nice to kind of get this confirmation in my head. Basically, hey, this is the way. You've known this all along, but in case you've had any second thoughts of, oh, well, I also really need to know the changes. Well, yes, you do, and we're going to talk about how to practice that today, but that's still not the main thing. The first thing that you have to be thinking about, or at least feeling when you're playing, is the rhythms over time. So let me kind of just get into this exercise here now, because again, I understand that this lesson in particular is getting kind of rambly. So even though I want to talk about now how to actually practice playing changes, understand that this is in a rhythmic context, okay? So here's the thing. This was the first sort of part of the last year that started my sort of rhythmic journey, if you will. But the exercise that I want to give you right now ironically, is something that I just started doing more consistently, at least probably a couple of months ago. So this exercise is actually one of the last things that I've kind of started doing, at least within this topic. But I think it applies to this concept of how do you play changes better while focusing on the time. Okay, so let's just cap that ramble and let's just go into this exercise. So basically, this exercise, I think, if you were to ask me what is the single best exercise that you could do to improve your ability to play changes, this would be it, in my own opinion, at least in terms of what I understand right now. So basically, to put it simply, and I'm going to demonstrate, the exercise is basically just playing half notes um, with chord tones through a progression, okay? And that's the main framework, but you'll see as I do it, um, you're going to start to hear and feel other things, other rhythms and pitches, but this is sort of like your foundation, okay? And this is something, like, if you can't do this confidently, you can't play jazz for real confidently. So this is like a simple foundation, and this is the thing. Even though this exercise is meant to help you play changes better, it's still a rhythmic exercise because you're basically putting this rhythmic restriction on yourself for the most part. That's basically like play half notes and that's it. Um, by doing that, this is automatically priming your brain to start having the right approach towards playing jazz, because even more than deciding on what notes you're going to play, you're already establishing exactly what rhythm you're going to play. Okay? And once you know what rhythm you're going to play, the notes will just fill themselves in automatically. Now, obviously, you need to know your changes and you need to be familiar with the chord tones and all that stuff. That's, you know, that's why we work on it. But doing it this way is going to help you. So, when I practice this type of thing, I like to practice it in a very methodical, intelligent way, similar to the way that I was talking about with the video I made 2 videos ago, basically how to improve your technique. And I basically said technique is related to time, and I talked about playing in time with the metronome and starting at a tempo that is obnoxiously slow so that you have it, and then from there it's just a matter of building it up little by little. So really, you just want to do the same thing with this. So maybe I'll pick a tune like All the Things You Are, and it's early here today. I actually haven't practiced or started playing it all yet today, so I might be a little rusty. But now, where you start really depends on you, okay? I'll just start at 120 beats per minute here. I'll do it on 2 and 4. But basically, if I was going to play All the Things You Are, chord tones and half notes, and I'll start just by doing this very strict. So basically, something like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so at the end, well, I was kind of getting a little off time there. Now, obviously, you probably noticed that I didn't just stick to half notes. Now, at first, you absolutely do want to do that, but the reason why I was kind of diverging was basically to kind of demonstrate my whole point. When you do this exercise, you're going to notice your ear, especially if you've been playing a while, will naturally hear other things, other rhythms, syncopations, mainly, you know, other notes, and that's a good thing. But that's the whole point, is that by sort of creating this foundation in your head of just playing half notes with chord tones through a form, you're making it a lot easier on yourself. Now, probably I would just try to do half notes before diverging from it, but from there, you can increase the speed little by little. So now I'm doing this on beats 2 and 4, but maybe I'll bump it up on the metronome 10 beats per minute. So really, that's going from 120 beats per minute to 140 if we're talking about the quarter note. So I would do the same thing. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now here's the funny thing. I'm not perfect. No one is. You can probably hear, even whether I'm diverging from the half notes or not. Um, when I'm not hitting the right chord tones on a downbeat or something like that, it shows up. Like, you can probably hear it. Or when I'm not, if I'm rhythmically off. But that's why you practice these things. So basically, you can kind of see. That's why if you are kind of falling off a little bit, that should tell you, go back to half notes, get your foundation solidified, because that having a strong foundation in that is going to make it a hell of a lot easier to kind of go off. And that's the thing. Um, Hopefully, that's why I'm demonstrating it, because it's much easier, I think, to even hear it than have me even explain it or verbalize it. Um, Hopefully, you should see that by having this foundation, it makes it a lot easier to diverge off, while always kind of in the back of your head keeping that foundation still there. If I was to go off into more rhythmically dense or harmonically dense notes and stuff like that just from the top, basically doing what I'm trying to do as I'm diverging, but doing that from the beginning as opposed to just starting with those half notes, um, it would not be as good. And this is also similar to people talking about, like, when you're taking a solo, basically, starting slow and then building it more up from there. I guess it's similar to that, but it's really important to have this foundation. And this is the thing. This will improve your ability to play changes a lot, because what you have to do is you still have to be thinking ahead. And when you're on a chord, you got to be thinking about, okay, like, what's the next chord that's coming up, and just focusing on playing changes. And chord tones are playing the changes more clearly than anything else. So that's the thing. Even though you have to think more about rhythm, by practicing a tune like this is how you really know the tune. And not only are you getting the changes in your head, but you're getting the sound of the progression in your head as well. Because you should be able to hear the proper notes to go to the more that you practice this. And if you've taken the time to build it up little by little, um, you'll get to that area much quicker. So then I would go to 160 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that one was not so hot, but I'm just trying to demonstrate this in the moment, and I would spend more time with this when if I'm actually practicing versus just making a video here, you know, two, 1, 2, 3, 4. So a little sloppy. Again, I'm not really warmed up or anything today, and that's 180. If I bumped it up 10 more beats per minute on the metronome, we'd be at 200 beats per minute, the quarter note. So, I think I've made my main point with that today. But that is how you should practice playing changes and playing through a tune. If you can't play half notes to start over a tune, good luck trying to play that tune for real without any restrictions. Okay? So that is how you should practice playing changes. And again, really understand that point is you are still putting primacy on the rhythm by doing this because you're making an effort to make sure that you're playing half notes. And because you have a clear rhythm, it grooves much better. And then if you start syncopating the half notes naturally, then you're going to start to put yourself in the right direction of playing. So, I think, I'll let you decide. Do you think that exercise is just really more of a focus on rhythm, or is it playing changes? It can go either way, but like I said, this one, that's what I wanted to talk about this first, because this does have to do with playing changes, but we're still on a discussion of rhythm, and you have to know how to basically take care of the changes so that you can focus more on rhythm. So this exercise is probably one of the best things that you could do to basically just take care of the changes so that when you're working on a new tune, you can familiarize yourself with it as best as possible. That's really it for the main stuff that I want to tell you today. I will say that, trust me, in terms of rhythm and tangible things, the next 2 lessons are going to get way more in depth. This was really more of an intro thing and just, again, how to take care of the changes. Around this time, though, when I did meet up with this bass player, and I basically made a decision in my head, okay, I'm going to really take this year to focus on improving my timing. About this time, I did order some of the Mike Longo educational materials, and I'm going to talk about this probably the most in the 3rd lesson. And even though I got these materials around this time and started looking at them, I really didn't appreciate them the way I did or do now until months later. So that's going to come in the 3rd video. And I'll be talking about some of Mike Longo's products a little bit if you're familiar with them. I think that they're really beneficial. I'm not going to talk about his concepts too much, like in terms of like what they actually are, because I don't want to spoil his education materials because, he sells them. So I'm not going to get into specifics about what exactly they are, but I will talk about them and the importance of them and what they've done for my playing. So you can stick around for that as well. But I think that will cap off this video for now. But yeah, definitely stick around. Like I said, this one was pretty rambly today. That exercise should be pretty beneficial to you, though, I think. But you're definitely going to get a lot of good information that is nice and consolidated and all within this little 3-part mini-series. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you in the next one.